Today for Devotions with Daniela, we are reading from the second book of Daniela, The Culting of America, and we shall see where the Spirit leads us today. Ooh, isolation. This is the isolation chapter. Isolation, or sometimes insulation from the outside world, is crucial to high control environments. Cults frequently push members to disconnect from external relationships and spaces, limiting their interactions in ways that make them more vulnerable to the group's control. Whether it's relocating people to a remote commune, setting up strict rules about who you can talk to, or creating boundaries or demands that make it impossible to keep up with friends and family, the outcome is the same: severing members from their old lives and support systems. Once that's done, the group builds a little bubble where its ideology can thrive, untouched by the outside perspectives. When you're surrounded 24/7 by a group's beliefs, the reinforcement starts to feel like reality, and questioning seems impossible. Margaret Singer explains how this plays out. Not Margaret Sanger, they're different people. Recruits are brought to camps in the country, weekend retreats, clandestine cult facilities, workshops in the desert, and a host of other places to isolate them from access to their usual social life. These groups know that physically cutting people off is an effective way to change their behavior and make them more compliant. When you're suddenly removed from everything familiar, your friends, family, job, school, it becomes so much easier to fall in line with the group's expectations. Physical isolation isn't just a logistical move, it's psychological. Dr. Alexandra Stein tells us that the combination of fear and isolation is what puts the coercion into coercive persuasion. In an environment where the group's ideas go unchallenged, you're left with no one to remind you who you were before. Janja Lalich says that after living in an environment where everyone thinks and acts alike, even if you are not as sequestered as those in more restrictive cults, your outlook shrinks and your ability to communicate atrophies. The cult I grew up in was like that, marked by total physical and psychological isolation. We were 10,000 strong, living in communes scattered across the globe, each of us devoting every aspect of our life to the group and severing ties with anyone unwilling to pay the same steep entrance costs we had. And you can read all about my childhood growing up in the Children of God in my book, Uncultured. You can get signed copies attached here or listen to me read it to you anywhere you get your audiobooks. Basic training in the military shares structural similarities with high control groups. Recruits are cut off from outside influences and immersed in strict routines that reshape identity around collective values. One key feature is the battle buddy system, which felt eerily similar to the buddy system I experienced in the Children of God. A mandated pairing of soldiers intended to build mutual support, foster accountability, and prevent isolation. A practice many service members report as positive and even life-saving, particularly in relation to suicide prevention. Yet, while the system encourages camaraderie and safety, it also removes privacy and reinforces internal surveillance. This isolation together dynamic fosters deep loyalty that makes soldiers more receptive to indoctrination, and it creates a system where the group polices itself, making sure you stay in line without needing constant top-down enforcement. The same isolation strategy shows up in the troubled teen industry. Only there, it's dressed up in Patagonia vests and called tough love. Thousands of American families ship their kids off to these boot camps, wilderness therapy programs, therapeutic boarding schools, and behavior modification facilities that claim to help troubled adolescents with issues like substance abuse, defiance, mental health struggles, or academic failure. Many don't know that the origins of this industry trace back to Synanon, the 1950s drug rehabilitation program that evolved into a full-fledged cult. Synanon's harsh behavior modification tactics later became the blueprint for many troubled teen programs through offshoots like the North Star Wilderness Camp, the Worldwide Association of Specialty Programs, and Straight Inc. These facilities are often unregulated, many in the middle of nowhere, Utah, we're looking at you, And the first thing staff do is cut off all outside contact. No phone, no internet, no unsupervised conversations. Once inside, kids are told their parents no longer trust them. Their friends were bad influences, and any resistance is proof they're in denial and not yet healed. In facilities like these, as in so many total institutions, isolation becomes the treatment. According to Breaking Code Silence, a survivor-led advocacy group, these programs frequently weaponize social deprivation to instill compliance. Survivors have described years of trauma, abuse, and coercion at these facilities, some of which operate entirely without government oversight. And we just did a Troubled Teen Institute episode on our podcast, Cults and the Culting of America. Check it out. Paris Hilton's 2020 documentary, This is Paris, blew the lid off Provo Canyon School in particular. The interview we did was with someone who was with Paris in the school and was in her documentary. She detailed the abuse she and other former residents claimed to have faced there. This is not therapy. It's indoctrination with a trauma bonding twist. And like any good cult, they sell it to terrified parents as salvation. And I would say controlling parents. In her book, Love, Terror, and Brainwashing, Dr. Alexandra Stein explains how, like a dysfunctional family, high control groups create disorganized attachment in their members, further solidifying the control. Totalist leaders, either directly or through their organizations, create a relationship of disorganized attachment by isolating people from their prior sources of support and replacing those with a new and frightening safe haven. We know from attachment research that disorganized attachment, which involves seeking proximity with the frightening attachment figure when there is no other attachment figure or escape available, causes a dissociative response. Dissociation separates thinking from feeling. It disintegrates the left logical, verbal thinking side of the brain. The dissociated person's ability to think clearly about the relationship is impaired, and so they are now in a position to accept the group's views, its ideology. This ideology is in place to further bolster the elements of isolation, terror, and love, and to explain away feelings of fear induced in the follower. Emotionally, the dissociated person tends to draw closer to the group, as it is now their only remaining safe haven. A group's isolation tactics aren't always obvious. As we'll explore in the following sections, isolation also involves the emotional and mental walls that keep people locked into the group's reality. Sometimes these walls are subtle, reinforced through the group's culture, to ensure everyone toes the line and keeps the status quo intact. You can get pre-order copies of The Culting of America attached here. With every hard copy order through my social media, you're also going to get the digital and the audio, and those are going to be available in November. Book comes out January 20th.